The man appeared on the 9th hole like a ghost. I was lining up a putt, a 12-footer, slight break to the left, when I noticed him walking toward me from the adjacent fairway. Mid-60s, silver hair, expensive golf shirt. He moved with the easy confidence of someone who belonged true north, but I had never seen him before. He stopped about 10 feet away and just watched me. Didn't say anything, just watched with this look on his face that I couldn't quite read. I missed the putt by 2 inches. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. He walked closer, close enough that I could see his eyes now, tired, serious, carrying something heavy. "Mr. Connor? Mitchell Connor?" "That's right." "I'm sorry to interrupt your game." He glanced around, making sure no one else was within earshot. "But the woman you're about to marry, she's done this before. 3 times that I know of." My chest tightened. "Excuse me?" "Her name isn't Diane Holloway. It's Denise Vickers. Sometimes she goes by Donna. She targets men like you, successful, widowed, lonely. She marries them, takes what she can, and moves on." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to tell this stranger to get the hell off my golf course and mind his own business, but something in his voice stopped me. Something raw, something that sounded like experience. "And the second husband," he continued, "he didn't survive her." He pressed a business card into my hand before I could respond. Then he turned and walked back toward the clubhouse without another word. I stood there, putter in my grip, heart pounding against my ribs. The Arizona sun was blazing overhead, but I felt cold. I looked down at the card, simple white cardstock, black text. "Gregory Tavish, ask me about Donna Vickers," and a phone number. What I learned about the woman sleeping in my bed would make my blood run cold. But before I tell you what was in that private investigator's file, you need to understand how a man who sold stories for a living got sold the biggest lie of his life. Now, before I go any further, I want you to hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you, it could happen to anyone. It could happen to you, and I don't want you to miss the warning signs I missed. My name is Mitchell Connor. Everyone calls me Mitch. I'm 58 years old, and I live in Paradise Valley, Arizona, a quiet, upscale community just outside Scottsdale, where the homes have mountain views and the golf courses have waiting lists. For 31 years, I ran Connor & Associates, an advertising agency I built from nothing. Started with 3 employees in a strip mall office, grew it to 140 people, corner office downtown Phoenix, clients you'd recognize from Super Bowl commercials. I sold the agency 5 years ago for $8.2 million and walked away. I wasn't tired of the work. I was tired of doing it alone. My wife, Caroline, died 8 years ago. She was 49. We'd been married 24 years, raised 2 kids together, built a life I was proud of. She was the kind of woman who made everyone around her better, patient where I was impatient, kind where I was sharp, steady when I was spiraling. She collapsed at a charity gala. One minute she was laughing with friends, and the next she was on the floor, surrounded by strangers trying to help. Heart attack, massive. She was gone before the ambulance arrived. I didn't get to say goodbye. That's the part that haunts me most. 24 years of marriage, and our last conversation was about whether to get the salmon or the chicken. For 14 months, I thought I'd found a second chance at love. I didn't know I'd found a professional predator who'd done this 3 times before, and one of her husbands didn't survive. After Caroline died, I threw myself into work. The agency became my life, my distraction, my therapy, my excuse to not deal with the grief. I worked 70-hour weeks. I traveled constantly. I told myself I was fine. I wasn't fine. I was just busy. When I sold the agency, all that busyness disappeared, and what was left? A big empty house,
friends who'd moved on with their lives, 2 adult kids, Ryan in Denver, Kelsey in L.A., who called every few weeks but had their own worlds to worry about. I joined the country club, started playing more golf, tried a few hobbies, but the loneliness was always there, sitting in the chair across from me at dinner, lying in the empty half of the bed, filling the silence where Caroline's voice used to be. I met Diane Holloway 14 months ago at a wine tasting event at the Phoenician Resort. She was standing by the Cabernet table, swirling her glass with practiced elegance. Dark hair, warm brown eyes, a smile that felt like sunshine after a long winter. She was 43, or so she said, and she told me she was a widow, too. "My husband passed 3 years ago," she said, her voice soft with remembered pain. "Cancer. It was slow, brutal. By the end, I was almost relieved, and then I felt guilty for being relieved. I understood that. God, I understood it." We talked for 2 hours that night, about loss, about grief, about the strange guilt of moving forward when the person you loved can't. She listened like no one had listened to me in years. She asked questions. She remembered details. She made me feel seen. Stop. I need to explain something. About advertising. My entire career was about reading people, understanding what they want, what they fear, and using that to tell a story they'd believe. Except Diane did the same thing to me. Except her product was herself, and I bought it completely. The courtship was perfect, too perfect, I realized later. She mirrored everything I cared about: golf, wine, classic films, travel. She remembered my late wife's birthday and sent flowers to her grave. She befriended my children, charmed my neighbors, integrated herself into my life so smoothly that I never felt her doing it. Within 6 months, she'd moved in. Within 10 months, I proposed. The ring cost $42,000, a 3-carat diamond from Tiffany's. She cried when she said yes, told me I'd given her hope again. And I believed her, because I wanted to, because the alternative, that I was being played, was too humiliating to consider. For 3 days after the encounter on the golf course, I didn't call the number on that card. I told myself the stranger was crazy, a jealous ex, a bitter man trying to cause trouble. I told myself Diane was everything she appeared to be, and that I was too smart, too experienced, too good at reading people to be fooled. But the name kept echoing in my head. Donna Vickers. I'd never heard Diane mention that name, not once, and she talked about her past all the time, her childhood in Ohio, her first marriage, her husband's illness. If she'd ever gone by another name, wouldn't that have come up? On the 4th day, I called. Gregory Tavish answered on the 2nd ring. "Mr. Connor, I was wondering if you'd call. I need to understand what's going on. I need to see proof. Can we meet somewhere she won't see you?" We agreed at a diner in Mesa, 40 minutes from my house, in a neighborhood where no one would recognize me. I told Diane I had a doctor's appointment. Greg was already there when I arrived, sitting in a back booth with a thick manila folder on the table in front of him. He looked different than he had on the golf course, older, more tired, like a man carrying a weight he couldn't put down. "Before I show you this," he said, "I need you to understand something. What's in this file destroyed my life, my marriage, my relationship with my children. I spent 2 years in therapy. I almost killed myself." I stared at him. "You were married to her?" "For 18 months. She was calling herself Donna then, Donna Vickers. We met at a golf resort in La Jolla. She did the same thing to me that she's doing to you, the mirroring, the love-bombing, the perfect widow routine." "What happened?" "I started noticing money missing, small amounts at first, then larger ones. When I confronted her, she threatened to go to the police, said I'd tell them I was abusive, that I'd been hitting her." He shook his head. "I paid her $95,000 to leave, just to make it stop." The file Greg handed me that afternoon would destroy everything I thought I knew about the last year of my life. But sitting in that diner, I wasn't ready to open it yet. After she left, I hired a private investigator, Greg continued. I wanted to know who I'd really been married to, what I found. He pushed the folder toward me. Her real name is Denise Marie Vickers, born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She's been married 3 times before you, 3 different names, 3 different states, and her second husband, a man named Ronald Pratt, died 14 months into the marriage. My throat dried. Died how? Medication interaction, that's what the official report said. But there was an investigation. The detective always suspected foul play. They just couldn't prove it. Greg's eyes met mine. She inherited $400,000.
I finally opened the folder. Inside were documents I couldn't unsee. Marriage certificates, 3 of them, each with a different name, divorce filings, court records, a death certificate for Ronald Pratt, age 61, and photographs, surveillance photos of Diane with men I didn't recognize in cities I'd never heard her mention. One photo caught my eye. Diane, or Donna, or Denise, or whoever she was, standing outside a courthouse in San Diego. The date stamp was from 3 years ago. 3 years ago, she told me she was living in Ohio, caring for her dying husband. She'd lied about everything, every single thing. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked Greg. "Why track her down? Why warn me?" He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Because no one warned me, and after what she did to me, after what she might have done to Ronald Pratt, I couldn't let her do it again. I've been following her for 2 years, waiting for her to resurface. When my PI found her in Scottsdale, engaged to a wealthy widower," he shrugged. "I had to try." I took the file home that night. Diane was at a yoga class, or so she said. I didn't believe anything she said anymore. But her absence gave me time to think, time to plan. See, here's the thing about advertising. The best campaigns don't start with emotion. They start with research. You study the target. You understand their weaknesses. You find the pressure points. And then you build a story that exploits every single one. Diane had done that to me. Now it was my turn. The next morning, I started my own investigation. First, I went through her things while she was out. Carefully, methodically. I didn't want her to know I was looking. I found nothing unusual in her dresser, her closet, her jewelry box. She was careful. But people who are careful about the big things sometimes slip on the small ones. I found the phone in her glove compartment, a burner, prepaid, the kind you buy at a convenience store and throw away when you're done. She'd hidden it under a stack of napkins, probably thinking I'd never look there, and honestly, I wouldn't have if Greg hadn't opened my eyes. The phone was locked, 4-digit passcode. I tried her birthday, wrong. Tried our anniversary, wrong. Tried the date of our engagement. It unlocked. And when I scrolled through the messages, I found a conversation that made my hands shake. There was only one contact saved in the phone, someone named Kenny. The texts were sparse but devastating. "How's it going with the mark?" Sent 2 months ago. "Good, he proposed. The ring was worth at least $40K. Her response: "Nice, don't rush it. Bigger score if you wait." I know, weddings in spring. Once it's done, we move to phase 2. Phase 2. I read those words 3 times. Phase 2. I didn't know what phase 2 was. I didn't want to find out. I photographed every message in that phone, every text, every voicemail. Then I put it back exactly where I found it and went inside to pour myself a drink. I'm 58 years old. I've run a company, I've raised 2 children, I've buried a wife, and in that moment, reading those texts, I felt like the biggest fool who ever lived. Have you ever felt that, when you realize you've been looking at a mask instead of a face?
The engagement was a lie. The love was a lie. The shared grief over dead spouses. Her husband never existed. Every kiss, every I love you, every quiet moment on the patio watching the sunset, all of it was performance, a carefully crafted sales pitch designed to separate me from my money, and I'd fallen for it completely. For a week, I played along. I smiled at her over breakfast. I held her hand during dinner. I talked about our wedding plans, the venue, the catering, the guest list, while knowing in my heart that there would be no wedding. But I needed more evidence. The PI file was damning, but it was about her past. The burner phone was incriminating, but a good lawyer might find ways to explain it away. If I was going to destroy her, really destroy her, I needed something undeniable. So I set a trap. I told her I'd been thinking about our finances, about protecting my children's inheritance, and that I wanted us to sign a prenuptial agreement before the wedding. Her reaction told me everything. First came the surprise, then the hurt, then the tears. "You don't trust me?" She stared at me with those warm brown eyes, the same eyes that had made me feel seen, that had convinced me she understood my pain. "After everything we've shared? After I opened my heart to you?" "It's not about trust," I said. "It's about being smart. Your children will get what they deserve." Her voice rose. The warmth was gone. Something cold had taken its place. "I'm going to be your wife, Mitchell. Your wife. That means I'm family. That means I have rights. And if you think I'm going to sign some document that treats me like a stranger..." She stopped, caught herself. I watched her wrestle the mask back into place. "I'm sorry," she said, softer now. "I'm just hurt. I never thought I thought we were past this kind of thing." "We can talk about it later," I said. But I'd seen enough. A woman who loved me would have understood, would have said, "Of course, let's protect your kids," would have signed without hesitation, because the money wasn't the point. Diane's reaction proved what I already knew. The money was the only point. The next call I made was my son. Ryan was 32, married, worked in software, lived in Denver. He was analytical, careful, not easily fooled. He'd been skeptical of Diane from the start, not hostile, just cautious. "She seems great, Dad. Just take your time, okay?" I hadn't taken my time. I'd rushed in like a lovesick teenager, desperate to fill the void Caroline left behind. But Ryan had seen something I'd missed, and now I needed his help. "Dad," he sounded surprised when he answered. "Everything okay?" "I need you to come to Scottsdale as soon as you can. There's something I have to show you, and I can't explain it over the phone." He arrived 2 days later. I picked him up at the airport and drove him to the same diner in Mesa where I'd met Greg. I showed him the file, the photos, the burner phone messages. He read through everything twice without saying a word. When he finally looked up, his jaw was tight. "I knew something was off," he said. "I felt it, but I thought I was just being overprotective." "You were right. I should have listened." "What are you going to do?" That was the question. What was I going to do? I could confront her privately, demand she leave, threaten legal action. But she'd done this before. She'd threatened Greg with false abuse allegations. She'd escaped from 2 other marriages without consequences. If I just made her leave, she'd disappear and find another victim. I didn't want her to disappear. I wanted her finished. The engagement party, 50 guests. Everyone who matters in my life. She's planned it down to the last detail. The perfect evening. Ryan's eyes narrowed. "You want to do it there?" She used spectacle to trap me. I'm going to use spectacle to destroy her. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Tell me what you need." The counterattack came 3 days later. My phone rang at 7 in the morning. It was Kelsey, my daughter, 29 years old, living in LA, working in fashion marketing. She'd been Diane's biggest supporter from the start. "Dad, she's perfect for you. Mom would have wanted you to be happy." But this call wasn't supportive. Kelsey was crying. "Dad, what the hell is going on?" I sat up in bed. Diane was in the shower. I could hear the water running. "What do you mean?" "Diane called me last night. She was sobbing. She said you've been acting strange, that you've accused her of being some kind of con artist, that you've been paranoid and suspicious, and she's worried about you." My stomach dropped. She'd gotten ahead of me. "Kelsey, listen to me." "No, Dad, you listen." Her voice cracked. "Mom's been gone for 8 years. 8 years, and you finally found someone who makes you happy, and now you're, sabotaging it? Pushing her away because you're scared? That's not what's happening. Then what is happening? Because Diane thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. She thinks losing Mom broke something in you that never healed, and now that you're close to being happy again, you're self-destructing." I closed my eyes. Diane had painted the picture perfectly. Grieving widower, fragile mental state, paranoid accusations against an innocent woman. If I tried to explain the truth now, I'd sound exactly as crazy as she'd made me appear. "Kelsey, listen to me. I need you to trust me." "I want to trust you, Dad, but what you're describing, secret identities, dead husbands, some stranger on a golf course, it sounds insane." "It's not insane. I have proof." Silence on the line. Then, "What kind of proof?" "I can't explain over the phone, but I'm asking you, as your father, as someone who has never lied to you, please wait until the engagement party. Come early. Let me show you what I found, and then you can decide for yourself." She didn't answer right away. I could hear her breathing, trying to process. "Fine," she said finally. "I'll come, but if this is—"
Wonderful. She leaned down and kissed my forehead. "I can't wait for our families to all be together. It's going to be perfect." I smiled back at her. "Yes, it is." The second counterattack came a week before the party. I was in my home office, going over the guest list, when I heard the front door slam. Hard. Diane's heels clicked across the hardwood floor, fast and angry, and then she was standing in my doorway with something in her hand. The PI file. She'd found the PI file. "What the hell is this?" I turned in my chair, keeping my face neutral. 30 years in advertising. 30 years of reading rooms, managing clients, staying calm when deals went sideways. I could handle this. "Where did you find that?" "In your desk drawer, the one you thought was locked." She threw the folder on my desk, papers scattering everywhere. "You've been investigating me? Hiring private detectives? Digging through my past like I'm some kind of criminal?" I had questions. "Questions?" She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound nothing like the warm laughter I'd fallen for. "What questions? Who put these ideas in your head?" "A man named Gregory Tavish." Her face flickered, just for a second, but I saw it. "I don't know anyone by that name." "He knows you. He says you were married to him for 18 months, in San Diego, under the name Donna Vickers." She stared at me. The mask was slipping, but she was fighting to hold it in place. "That's absurd. I've never been to San Diego. I've never—" "He has court documents, Diane. Marriage certificates, divorce filings, photographs." I gestured at the scattered papers. "It's all in there, along with the records from your first marriage in Tulsa and your second marriage in Albuquerque, the one where your husband died." The room went very quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was different, lower, colder. The warmth was gone, and something else had taken its place, something I'd never seen before. "You think you're the only one with secrets?" She took a step towards me. "I know things about your business, Mitchell, about Connor and Associates, about deals you made, clients you lied to, corners you cut." I felt my pulse quicken, but I kept my voice steady. "What are you talking about?" "I've been going through your files for months, your old emails, your contracts. You weren't exactly a saint in that business, were you?" She smiled, a predator's smile. "What would your fancy country club friends think if they knew the truth? What would your children think?"
She looked me in the eyes and said, "You think you're the only one with secrets. I know about the agency, about deals you made. You want that to come out?" The woman I was going to marry was threatening me. And that's when I knew. This ends at the engagement party. I stood up, slowly. I was 6 inches taller than her, and I used every inch. "Do your worst," I said. "I'd rather be embarrassed than dead." Her eyes widened, just for a second, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Fear. She recovered quickly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Ronald Pratt, your second husband, the one who died of a medication interaction 14 months into your marriage, the one whose death earned you $400,000. I stepped closer. "The police in New Mexico have been looking for you, Diane, or Donna, or Denise, whatever you're calling yourself these days." She backed up. Her hand found the doorframe. "You're crazy. You're having a breakdown. I'm calling your children." "Call them. They're coming to the party. So is Gregory Tavish. So is a detective from the Scottsdale Police Department." I smiled. My own predator smile, perfected over decades of closing deals. "You wanted the perfect engagement party, sweetheart. You're going to get one." She stared at me for a long moment, calculating, looking for an angle, an escape route, a way to regain control. Then she turned and walked out of my office. I heard the bedroom door slam. An hour later, she came downstairs with a suitcase. "I'm staying at a hotel until the party," she said. Her voice was calm again, but brittle. "I think we both need space to think about what we really want." "That's probably wise." She paused at the door. "This isn't over, Mitchell." "No," I agreed. "It isn't." She left, and I spent the next week preparing for the most important presentation of my life. If you're still here with me, I appreciate you more than you know. Hit that like button so this story can reach more people who need to hear it. Now, here's where I finally turned the tables. The engagement party was scheduled for a Saturday evening in October. 50 guests, catered dinner from the best restaurant in Scottsdale, a live jazz trio on the patio, sunset views over the golf course. Diane had planned every detail. The flowers, the seating chart, the champagne. She wanted photos for Instagram. She wanted witnesses to our happiness. She was going to get witnesses, just not the kind she expected. I spent the week coordinating. First call, Gregory Tavish. I asked if he'd be willing to come to the party and tell his story. He agreed without hesitation. I've been waiting 3 years to look her in the eye again. I wouldn't miss this for anything. Second call, Sergeant Diana Reyes with the Scottsdale Police Department. She'd been quietly investigating since I shared the PI file with her 2 weeks earlier. The Albuquerque PD had already reopened the Ronald Pratt case. "We don't have enough to arrest her yet," Sergeant Reyes told me, "but we have enough to question her, and if she runs, that tells us everything we need to know." Third call, my children. Ryan was already on board. Kelsey was harder. She still wanted to believe Diane was genuine, still wanted her father to be happy, but she had agreed to come early, to see the evidence, to give me a chance to explain. I showed her everything in my office that Friday afternoon. The file, the marriage certificates, the death certificate, the burner phone messages. She read through it all without speaking. When she finished, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't believe you." "You didn't know. But I should have listened. You're my father. I should have trusted you." I pulled her into a hug. My little girl, 29 years old, but still my little girl. I said, "You're here now. That's what matters." 50 guests, catered dinner, sunset on the patio. She'd planned every detail of her perfect night. She had no idea I'd planned something too. The party started at 6 o'clock. Diane arrived at 1:15, making an entrance the way she always did. She'd bought a new dress, emerald green, designer label, probably charged to my credit card. Her hair was perfect, Her makeup was perfect. Her smile was perfect. She moved through the crowd like a queen, accepting compliments, kissing cheeks, playing the role of the devoted fiancée with practiced ease. No one watching would have guessed that we hadn't spoken in a week. No one would have guessed that she'd threatened me in my own office. That's what made her so dangerous. The performance was flawless. I stayed on the opposite side of the patio, nursing a glass of club soda, watching her work the room. Ryan stood beside me, tense but ready. Kelsey was near the bar, doing her best to act normal. Greg was sitting at a table in the corner, unrecognized by everyone except me. And near the back door, trying to look casual, was Sergeant Reyes in plain clothes. At 7:30, the caterers served dinner. Everyone took their seats at the long tables we'd set up on the lawn. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful, romantic, exactly what Diane had wanted. At 8 o'clock, she stood up and clinked her glass. "I'd like to say a few words," she announced, beaming at the crowd. "When I met Mitchell 14 months ago, I never imagined I'd be standing here today, surrounded by so many people who love me." She turned to me, her eyes glistening with what looked like genuine tears. "Mitch, you gave me hope when I thought I'd never feel hope again. You showed me that love doesn't end when we lose someone, it just changes, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life showing you how much you mean to me." Applause. Murmurs of approval. Someone said, "Ah." She raised her glass. "To us." "To us," the crowd echoed. I didn't drink. I just smiled. And then I stood up. "Actually," I said, "I'd like to say a few words myself." Diane's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, sweetheart." I looked out at the crowd. 50 faces. Most of them friends I'd known for decades, people who attended Caroline's funeral, people who had watched me rebuild my life, people who deserved to know the truth. Here's where 30 years of selling stories finally paid off. Here's where I stopped being the mark and started being the closer. Because I didn't just want her gone, I wanted her finished. I looked out at the crowd. First, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. It means the world to me to see so many people who care about my happiness. I paused. Before we go any further with this celebration, I'd like to properly introduce my fiancée. I turned to Diane. Her face had gone very still. Her name is...
I picked up a folder from beside my plate, the same folder she'd thrown at me in my office. "I have the marriage certificates right here if anyone would like to see them." "Mitchell," Diane's voice was low, dangerous. "What are you doing?" "I'm telling the truth, something you've never done." I turned to the corner table. "I'd like to introduce someone. His name is Gregory Tavish. He was Diane's third husband. He has a story to tell." Greg stood up. Every eye in the room turned to him. "Hello, everyone." His voice was steady, but I could see his hands trembling slightly. "I was married to this woman for 18 months. She called herself Donna then. She told me she was a widow. She told me she loved me. And over the course of our marriage, she stole almost $100,000 from me before threatening to accuse me of abuse if I didn't pay her to leave." The crowd erupted in whispers. Diane's face had gone pale. "That's a lie," she said. "I've never seen this man before in my life." "Really?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out my phone. "Then maybe you can explain this." I pressed play on the voicemail I'd found on her burner phone. Her voice, unmistakably her voice, filled the air. "Kenny, it's me. The party's next week. Once it's done, once he signs the marriage certificate, we move to phase 2. I'm thinking Bermuda. Somewhere he can have an accident that looks natural. We'll split the insurance 50-50. The silence that followed was deafening. Diane's mask crumbled completely, her face twisted into something ugly, rage, desperation, cornered animal fury. "You sanctimonious old fool," she spat the words at me. "You think you're so smart? You think this changes anything?" "I think it changes everything." She grabbed her purse and bolted for the door. But Sergeant Reyes was already moving. "Denise Vickers?" The detective blocked her path, badge in hand. "I'm Sergeant Reyes, Scottsdale Police Department. You're wanted for questioning in connection with the death of Ronald Pratt in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You can come willingly or I can arrest you right here. Your choice." Denise, looked around wildly. No exits, no allies, no one willing to help her. She made one last desperate move. She lunged at me, clawing for my phone. Ryan intercepted her. My 32-year-old son, who'd never been in a fight in his life, grabbed her wrist and held her back. "Don't you touch my father." The officers who'd been waiting outside came through the door. Within 30 seconds, she was in handcuffs. As they led her past me, she stopped. Her eyes, those warm brown eyes I'd fallen in love with, burned with hatred. "You're a dead man," she hissed. "Kenny will find you. This isn't—" "Ma'am, that's enough." Sergeant Reyes guided her toward the door. "Let's go." The last thing I saw was the emerald green dress disappearing into the Arizona night, surrounded by police uniforms. The party was over, but my life, my real life, was just beginning. The investigation took months. Diane, I still catch myself calling her that, even though her real name was Denise, was held without bail after the engagement party. Flight risk, the judge said. No permanent address. History of using false identities. She wasn't going anywhere. The Albuquerque Police Department sent 2 detectives to interview her about Ronald Pratt's death. Armed with new evidence and Greg's testimony establishing her pattern of behavior, they were able to build a case that seemed impossible 8 years earlier. Turns out the original detective who investigated Ronald's death had never stopped believing it was murder. He just never had enough to prove it. Until now. Kenny, the accomplice she'd mentioned on the voicemail, was arrested 2 weeks after Diane in a motel room outside Las Vegas. His real name was Kenneth Morrow, and he had a rap sheet longer than my arm. Fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. He'd been Diane's partner for almost a decade, running the same scam on lonely widowers across the Southwest. When the FBI got involved, the scope of their operation became clear. Diane and Kenny had targeted at least 7 men that we know of. 7 successful men who'd lost their wives and were looking for companionship. 3 of them had married her. 1 of them was dead. And if I hadn't met Gregory Tavish on that golf course, I might have been next. The trial was scheduled for spring. Diane faced charges in 3 states: fraud in Arizona, theft and extortion in California, and second-degree murder in New Mexico. Her lawyers tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutors weren't interested. They wanted to send a message. I testified at the preliminary hearing, sat in that witness box and told the whole story, from the wine tasting at the Phoenician to the moment she lunged at me at my own engagement party. It wasn't easy. Admitting publicly that I'd been fooled, that I'd almost married a murderer, that I'd been so desperate for love that I ignored every warning sign, that takes something out of you. But I did it anyway, because every word I said was another nail in her coffin. Last I heard, she was offered a plea deal, 25 years, possibility of parole after 15. Her trial for the murder charge is still pending. Either way, she's not hurting anyone else for a long, long time. The weeks after the party were hard. The guests went home that night in stunned silence. Some of them called the next day to check on me. Some of them didn't know what to say. A few, people I thought were friends, stopped calling altogether. I think the whole thing made them uncomfortable, reminded them that they could be fooled too. But the people who mattered stayed. Kelsey flew back to L.A. the day after the party, but she called me every night for a month. Sometimes we'd talk for hours. About her mother, about what I'd been through, about why I'd been so willing to believe a lie. "You were lonely, Dad," she said one night. "That's not a crime. That's just being human." I should have been smarter. "You were smart. You figured it out. You stopped her."
I could hear the emotion in her voice. Mom would be so proud of you. That one hit me hard. I had to put the phone down for a minute and collect myself. Ryan came back to Scottsdale for Thanksgiving, brought his wife, Sarah, and my 3-year-old grandson, Oliver. We cooked a turkey together, or tried to anyway. Ryan nearly burned the stuffing, and Oliver kept trying to eat the cranberry sauce straight from the can. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. At one point, Oliver climbed into my lap and looked up at me with those big brown eyes. "Grandpa, are you happy?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "I think I am." I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because someone watching right now is in love with someone who isn't real, and I need you to know, trust your gut, check the story, and don't be too proud to ask for help. Gregory Tavish and I have become unlikely friends. Sounds strange, I know. The man who married my fiancée before me, who tracked her across the country for 3 years, who walked onto my golf course and shattered my world with a single sentence. But trauma creates bonds that don't make sense to outsiders. We meet for coffee every few weeks. Sometimes we talk about Diane. Sometimes we talk about our lives before her. Sometimes we just sit in silence and drink our lattes. 2 men who survived the same storm. "You know what I keep thinking about?" Greg said to me last month. "What about it?" "That moment on the golf course when I walked up to you." "What about it?" "I almost didn't do it," he shook his head. "I'd been following her for months. I knew exactly what she was doing to you. But when I saw you standing there, I thought, what if he doesn't believe me? What if I call security? What if I'm too late? But you did it anyway." "I had to, because no one did it for me." He looked at me. "And if I'd stayed quiet, you might be dead right now. I couldn't live with that." I reached across the table and shook his hand. "Thank you, Greg, for everything." He smiled, a tired smile, but a genuine one. "Just promise me you'll do the same thing someday. If you ever see someone walking into the same trap, you'll warn them." "I promise." I've kept that promise. 6 months after the engagement party, I started speaking at senior centers. Once a month, sometimes twice. I stand up in front of rooms full of people my age, retirees, widows, widowers, people who've worked their whole lives and deserve peace, and I tell them my story. I tell them about the wine tasting, about the love bombing, about the way she mirrored everything I cared about until I couldn't see where she ended and my fantasies began. I tell them about the burner phone, the fake identities, the voicemail about phase 2, and I tell them the warning signs I missed, the things I should have noticed, the questions I should have asked. Check their story, I say at the end of every talk. Verify their past, Google their name, ask for references, and if anyone tells you that you're being paranoid for wanting to protect yourself, run, because the people who really love you will understand. Some of them cry, some of them nod along, recognizing patterns from their own lives. A few have approached me afterwards and said, "I think this is happening to me." Those conversations are the hardest and the most important. I've helped 3 people so far, 3 people who were being targeted by romance scammers, who might have lost everything if someone hadn't intervened. One of them was a 74-year-old retired teacher who'd given her boyfriend $12,000 before her daughter convinced her to come to my talk. We got most of the money back. We reported the scammer to the FBI. And when she hugged me in the parking lot afterward, crying and thanking me, I thought about Greg on that golf course, about the courage it took to approach a stranger and tell an uncomfortable truth. That's what it takes. That's what stops these people. Not the police, not the courts. Regular people looking out for each other. I'm trying to be one of those people now. The house is quiet these days. Diane's things are gone. I donated everything she left behind. The clothes, the jewelry, the gifts I'd given her. I didn't want any reminders. The engagement ring went to a charity auction. It raised $38,000 for an elder abuse prevention organization. I've redecorated the bedroom.
New sheets, new curtains, a different color on the walls. It doesn't feel like her space anymore. It feels like mine again. I still have Caroline's photo on the nightstand. I talk to her sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep. Tell her about my day, about the kids, about Oliver learning to ride a tricycle. I almost made a terrible mistake, I told her once, but I caught it in time. You would have caught it sooner. You always were the smart one. I could almost hear her laughing. There's a woman I've been spending time with. Her name is Patricia. We met at a grief support group about 4 months ago. She lost her husband to Parkinson's 2 years back. We started talking after a meeting, and one conversation turned into two, and two turned into coffee, and coffee turned into dinner. It's not serious, not yet. We're taking things slow, slower than I've ever taken anything in my life. No rushing, no love bombing, no grand gestures, just two people getting to know each other honestly, with all our baggage and scars and complications out in the open. Last week she asked about Diane. I told her the whole story, didn't hold anything back. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "That must have taken a lot of courage, to stand up in front of everyone and expose her like that." "It wasn't courage," I said. "It was survival." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Same thing sometimes. I'm 58 years old. I've built and sold a company. I've raised 2 children who turned out pretty well despite my mistakes. I've buried a wife I loved more than anything, and I've survived a woman who wanted me dead. And you know what? I'm okay. Not perfect, not healed. There are still nights when I wake up in a cold sweat thinking about that voicemail. Phase 2, somewhere he can have an accident that looks natural. There are still moments when I doubt my own judgment, when I wonder if I'll ever trust anyone completely again. But those moments are getting fewer, and the good moments are getting more. Oliver calls me every Sunday to tell me about his week. Ryan's talking about moving the family to Phoenix so they can be closer. Kelsey's coming for Christmas, bringing a boyfriend she wants me to meet, and I've already run a background check on him. She laughed when I told her. "That's fair," she said. "You've earned that." I play golf 3 times a week. I'm down to a 12 handicap. Greg says if I keep improving, I might actually beat him someday. The engagement party patio has been redone. New furniture, new lighting. I hosted a barbecue there last month. Just friends, no agenda, no speeches. We ate burgers and drank beer and watched the sunset over the mountains. And not once did I think about emerald green dresses or burner phones and the woman who almost destroyed my life. That's progress. That's healing. That's moving forward. The story I tell at senior centers always ends the same way. You deserve to be happy, I say. You deserve love and companionship and someone to share your golden years with. But you also deserve the truth, and anyone who really loves you will give you that, honestly, openly, without games or manipulation. Don't let fear stop you from living, but don't let loneliness make you blind. Trust your gut, check the story, protect yourself. And if you see something wrong, if you see someone walking into a trap, say something. You might just save their life. I'm living proof that it's never too late to start over. And the next chapter? It isn't written yet. But this time, I'm holding the pen. I'm sharing this story as a warning, because what happened to me, it's happening to someone right now. Maybe someone you know. Maybe someone you love. Share this video with them. Subscribe to John Vengeance so you see the next story. And comment below if you've ever spotted the warning signs in your own life. Stay fierce, because every story deserves its moment of sweet revenge.